Have you ever wondered what happens when the fate of a human and an animal cross paths at the edge of life? Our world, which so often seems chaotic and impersonal, holds stories of connection that defy logic. Stories of the purest compassion, capable of turning desolation into a miracle of survival. What you're about to hear isn't just about a lion cub who was close to death. It's about a woman whose courage and kindness set off a chain reaction that no one ever expected. It seems that sometimes the universe puts us in specific places at just the right time so we can fulfill a greater purpose. In the vast, arid Serengeti, where life and death dance side by side, a severe drought had brought the land to its knees. The cracked soil, the scorching air, and the heavy silence were a warning. It was in this setting of despair that Park Ranger Sarah Mitchell, with her heart on high alert and her eyes wide open, found a tiny body. Its ribs were like dry branches, the relentless heat sucking away its last bit of life. What she did was an act of instant courage. But what happened years later, what the lion did for her in an unexpected reunion, that's what's truly going to make your jaw drop. Stick with me, because this is the journey you need to know. A story of rescue that begins with the saddest of goodbyes, but, as you'll see, was far from over. On that day, the smell of the hot, dry soil was almost unbearable. Sarah was driving through a part of the Serengeti that seemed to have lost all life when the high sun reflected off something small and golden in the middle of some bushes. It was a quick glint, but it made her stop the car and get out. With her heart racing, she got closer, and the scene she found was heartbreaking. There, alone and defenseless, was a lion cub. The small body, trembling weakly, was just bone and skin. He could barely lift his head, and the faint, panting sound of his breathing was the only noise breaking the heavy silence. Close your eyes and feel this for a moment. The heat of the sun burning your skin, the sight of an innocent creature, at its most vulnerable. Who hasn't felt the urge to act when seeing an animal in danger? Sarah's protective instinct took over. She knew the cub's mother had likely succumbed to the same hunger and dehydration that now threatened the little one's life. It's a surprising fact, but in extreme drought conditions, the survival rate of lion cubs can drop to less than 50%, and even strong females are severely affected. No matter how hard they fight, nature can sometimes be merciless. Sarah knew she didn't have much time. She crouched down, speaking softly so she wouldn't scare him. The smell of sand and sweat mixed with the wild scent of the savannah hung in the air. The lesson here was clear. In moments of crisis, inaction is the biggest enemy. You have to act. If you love emotional animal stories, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any. Sarah's action wasn't one of grand heroism, but of a simple, firm decision not to turn her back. If you were in her place, would you have had the same compassion and courage? With extreme care, she picked the cub up in her arms, feeling how light he was, and put him in the car. The road to the rescue center would be long and uncertain, but now he had a chance. But what could she do when the center was hours away, and every minute that passed was a desperate fight against death? With every jolt on the dirt road, Sarah's heart beat faster. The smell of dust kicked up by the car filled the windows, and the little cub huddled in her lap seemed even more fragile. She kept glancing at the dashboard. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity. Her compassion was immense, but right there, in that moment, she felt helpless. All she could do was hold him tight and pray he'd hold on. Can you believe it? That feeling of doing all you can, but knowing the outcome is in the hands of something bigger, is something we can all relate to. When the car finally arrived at the rescue center, the other park rangers were already waiting. The transition was quick, a burst of activity. Have you ever felt a wave of relief when someone who knows what to do finally arrives? That's exactly how it felt. The air in the center was different. Answer: filled with the smell of antiseptic and the promise of help. The cub was quickly taken to the emergency veterinary treatment area. The team, a group of dedicated professionals, acted as if every second mattered, and it truly did. It's a stunning fact. A lion cub's metabolism is so fast that dehydration and lack of nutrients hit them with devastating speed. Time is, literally, a matter of life and death. The vets immediately put in 4 in the cub's vein, a thread of hope. The lesson we can take from this is that in any crisis, there is strength in numbers. You can't do everything alone. Their perseverance in seeking professional help was crucial in that moment. But even with the best veterinary treatment in the world, his survival was still hanging by a thread. What would happen once the most critical phase was over? The cub, now with a name Leo, had survived the night, but the battle was far from over. In the rehabilitation room, the soft smell of warm milk and the tranquility were a total contrast to the arid environment outside. Sarah's compassion wasn't limited to the moment of rescue. It became a daily dedication. Sarah became his mom, spending hours by his side, feeding him with a bottle. The spots on his golden fur, still without a lion's strength, seemed like stars in a sky of hope. With every feeding, with every touch, a deep connection formed. Have you ever felt so connected to an animal that it seemed like they understood your soul? Sarah's perseverance was incredible, and little Leo responded with small signs of strength. One of the most fascinating things about lion cubs is that a purr, which we associate with affection, can be a sign of both comfort and distress. That's why Sarah had to be attentive to every tiny nuance, all the time. Her lesson for us, right there, was that true healing happens with patience and presence. That real care is a consistency, a ritual of dedication. As the days passed, Leo started to gain weight. His paws, once so fragile, now moved with more vigor. The sound of his first timid growl wasn't one of aggression, but of satisfaction as he tasted his first portion of ground meat, a crucial milestone on his rehabilitation journey. What began with a desperate act of compassion turned into a story of hope. Leo's survival was secured, but the challenge was now different. How to prepare him for the wild, the life he was born for? Leo's rehabilitation phase reached a new level. It was time to prepare him for his true home, the wild. He was moved to a semi-wild enclosure, a vast space with trees, bushes, and the authentic smell of the savannah. For Sarah, every day there was bittersweet. She knew she had to create distance so he could become the lion he was meant to be, but the bond between them was deep. After all, he was like a son to her. The training was a slow and delicate process. It's a fascinating fact that lion cubs learn to hunt by observing their mother for months. How do you simulate that? Sarah used decoys so Leo could practice ambushes and attacks, teaching him the hunting instincts that nature couldn't. She ran with him, teaching him to pounce and move silently, feeling the wind on her face and the ground under her feet as she guided him. Her perseverance in this moment was that of someone raising a child for independence. A life lesson we can apply to our own lives. Sometimes the greatest act of love is to teach someone they no longer need you. The sound of Leo's growl grew stronger. His coat became shinier, and his gaze, once frightened, was now that of a predator. He was learning to be wild, but can you imagine Sarah's pain? Have you ever had to make a difficult decision, knowing it was for the best for someone you love, even if it hurt? This was Sarah's reality. With each passing day, she felt the bond lessen, but she watched the cub she had rescued from near death transform into the king of the savannah. His survival was secured, but the real test was about to begin. The wild is not kind, and the final release was the riskiest step of all. The big day had arrived. The air, once so dry, now carried the scent of wet earth after the first rains. The vast savanna stretched out ahead, and Leo, now a robust cub and almost ready for the world, was at the entrance of the semi-wild enclosure. Sarah, with a mix of pride and a lump in her throat, was there for one last goodbye. She knew that true compassion meant letting go, giving him the chance at a full life. What do you think is the greatest proof of love? Holding on or knowing when to let go? The gate opened, and there, in that instant, time seemed to stop. Leo hesitated for a moment, turning his head to look at Sarah one last time. The lion's eyes, now full of wildness, carried the memory of affection and perseverance. It's a remarkable fact that some animals, especially those with strong social instincts like lions, develop a long-term memory for the faces and voices of their caregivers. It was in that gaze that Sarah felt the final silent connection. With a slight tilt of his head, the great lion ran toward the vast horizon, back into the wild. He was free, back where he belonged, and his will to survive had triumphed. What he did years later, during an unexpected reunion, is the part that will truly shock you. The story of Sarah and Leo is a reminder that the deepest connections don't need words. The compassion of one person can light the flame of survival in a creature that seemed doomed. Their journey, from a tragic encounter in the middle of nowhere to a bittersweet goodbye, shows us that rehabilitation goes beyond the physical. It touches the soul. Leo didn't just survive. He thrived, and Sarah didn't just save him. She learned the power of the love that sets you free. Anyone who has had an animal change their life, one that seemed to understand their soul, knows what I'm talking about. Share your story with us in the comments. And if this story warmed your heart, the next video suggested by YouTube is going to move you even more. Don't miss it.